Our guest today has been in blue-collar industries his entire career. He's a former Coast Guard special operator, which no doubt has helped him to form who he is today in his multiple businesses. He's got experience on the service business side of things, but where he's really made his mark is on the manufacturing side, making the parts and serving the companies that go out and serve their customers. As president and owner of National Chimney, one of the premier manufacturers for the chimney and venting industry, Darin has built something truly impressive. And today we're going to talk to him right here on the show. Proud Nation, please welcome Darin Bibeau. Hey, Darin.
How are you?
Good. Thanks for being on.
Oh, no problem. I feel like after that introduction, I feel like I'm kind of a big deal.
You are a big deal, man. You're always, we got a chance to meet you and really talk at a recent event that was all about leadership and culture. And I definitely want to go deep on that and talk with you a little bit about leadership and culture. But before we get there, I want to talk a little bit about some of your earlier experiences because I think I remember you started a business. Was it like a handyman business or a construction remodeling company or something with your brother?
Yeah, that's correct. It was a construction company doing masonry and basically some other side work, but mostly masonry when we were much younger, years ago.
Yeah, and was that before or after the Coast Guard career?
Oh, that was definitely before the Coast Guard career.
Got it. So you had already had a taste of service business, of being in a business and having customers and growing that in the construction side. And then you left and went to the Coast Guard. Tell us a little bit about the Coast Guard and what you did for the Coast Guard and how that kind of helped shape the rest of your career.
Sure, no problem. Actually, it all started when I was a kid, when I used to work construction on the side with my dad. Used to do masonry jobs, do some brickwork, and we'd go to the homeowner's house, and my dad taught me how to talk to the homeowners and really taught me the need for people to do hard work and just get the job done right and have a satisfied customer. I did that for quite a while through my high school years, and then my brother and I started D&D Construction. Again, we were still kids at that time, and I did that for a couple of years, and then I realized kind of needed something different in my life, and that's when I went and joined the military and signed up with the Coast Guard.
So what, you were in special ops, is that right?
That's correct. At first I did search and rescue for a little while, and then I got into, it's called the LEADET, so it's the Deployable Special Forces. Most of my time was working in South America and Central America, Colombia, Venezuela, Costa Rica, some nice places, some not nice places, but I was on a team of 6 to 9 guys, so we worked really well together. Had a great time, really learned a lot about discipline and, relying on each other to get the job done. It's about teamwork.
Yeah, and I was going to ask that because a lot of people don't realize that in the Coast Guard that you actually do anything on any other continent than the U.S. continent, which is true. I mean, there are several things that I've heard of in the Coast Guard, and I've only know that because I've got family that's in the Navy and just talking with them. But tell me how that changed your perception of what work is as far as with team and leadership.
Well, I think when you first get in the military, it's a huge culture change for you because you're not used to A, the discipline, and B, the results that you have to get. And again, when you're working with a team, they're relying on you to do a good job, regardless what it is. And it definitely relates back into the business world. If you're on a team of people working to get a job accomplished and you have a couple people that are not pulling their weight, then obviously you're not going to get a successful result. But it's the same thing in the military, especially when you start talking about special operations and even to the basics of, a regular person in the military that, is working at a desk. The paperwork that they do, and the cooks that are out there cooking, it's all a big team that works together to have a successful conclusion of whatever the operation is or whatever the job is. And then relating that back into the business world, it's the same thing. If you have 6 employees or 600 employees, if you have several of them that aren't pulling their weight, whether you're working on someone's roof or you're manufacturing components for, widgets for someone, you've got to make sure that you're putting the effort into making sure it's a quality product, or the end result is the homeowner's happy with whatever the job is, whether you're, cleaning their windows or you're mowing their lawn or fixing their roof. It's all jobs that have to get done. And people that do those jobs work their butt off. And, the people that do those jobs like myself, if you do a good job at it and you've got a good team with you, your customers are happy. Customer support is what pays all of our bills.
That's so true.
Good point.
The Coast Guard's got, the military in general in the U.S. has got an amazing culture, and it's something that is hardwired into you from the moment you begin your career in the military. And the importance of that culture is everything, right? I mean, and maybe they don't, I don't know. Do they talk about the culture in that regard in the military, or is it just sort of a result of having an amazing culture that teamwork is front and center? I mean, what the rules are, what the core values of the military is. I mean, I can't remember, there's a specific, what is that code? I can't remember. Help me.
For the Coast Guard, the core values were honor, respect, and devotion to duty. And I've taken that into my business of, National Chimney, where our core values, we took the word honor and then we made it into like an acronym, because acronyms are big in the military. So each letter stands for something. Like honor, H stands for honesty and integrity. O, operating at the highest level at all times. N, never say never. O, originality, thinking outside the box. And then R, respect the customer, the company, yourself. And every one of my employees carries one of those cards around with them. We have it on our T-shirts. We have it posted on our walls, English and Spanish. And these are the core values that we grow our business on. If people aren't following those core values, then they have to get off the bus because they're not going to be part of the team.
It doesn't work unless everybody's on the same page.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in the military, they instill it in your head, then it just becomes second nature. It's not hard to get up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning if you do it every day. But if it's something that you don't do every day, then of course that becomes a little difficult. But when you have rules and regulations that you have to follow, obviously you have to be, you can't be out there just whipping the whip all the time. There has to be some leniency. If someone's going to be late for work for some reason and they call in and it's a legitimate excuse, obviously we can still operate at the highest level because we've been informed. However, if you have someone that's, on your team, whether, like I said, you're a company that has 3-4 people or, a few hundred people, if people just don't show up or show up late and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, you're not going to get the results that you want for your customers. And again, without the customers, none of us are in business.
Yeah, I think one of the things that a lot of people miss is they prioritize the people in their companies or on their teams, to the extent of where this person's important and that person is not. And one of the things I really liked what you said, and you really stressed this, that everybody is a part of the team. Everyone. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so 100%. When you guys were at the event in Ohio, which I thought was a really good event, by the way, I talked about the wheel. The wheel is the spokes, the hub, the tire, the rim. If you're missing one part of that, the wheel gets bent and goes off into the ditch. I mean, it's a very simple analogy, but it's the same thing when you're working in a company, whether it's your department that has, 10 people in it or however many people. But if one of those spokes is bent and you can't correct the action by the other spokes, then you're going to basically go in the ditch. And, that's whether that's manufacturing a product or just not giving the proper service to the homeowner or whomever is paying for your service.
Yeah, I'm curious, has culture always been something that you focused on and worked hard to get right? Or has there been a time in your business experience where you didn't focus on that and maybe things were starting to get off the rails? You were missing part of that wheel that you were talking about.
Well, I think what happens is when I came out of the military and then I went into work for the State Department for a few years. And then after that is when I got into the business world, when I met Marty, my business partner. And basically, when I came into the business, one of my goals or one of my missions per se was to change the culture in the company. And so it was specifically what I was trying to do on a daily basis. And I can tell you at first it's a hard go.
Yep.
Because the people aren't doing it and they're not used to it. No one wants change. But the fact is, once you can make the change, people will end up working harder and they want to be held accountable. No one just wants to come to work and have no one recognize what they're doing, whether it's good or bad. It doesn't matter if someone does a great job or a bad job, but you have to communicate it to them so they know what your expectations are. If you have clear expectations, what you expect out of the person, inspect what you expect. and then there's no confusion. And it's not, some people, when I talk to them, they're like, oh, geez, that sounds so strict. Well, it might sound strict if you're used to letting people just show up to work at 8 when they're supposed to be here at 7. And then all of a sudden you say, hey, if you don't show up tomorrow at 7, you're fired. Well, that's a tough go. You're probably going to lose a few employees.
Yep.
But you make those gradual changes. And then when you look back at it, you can kind of laugh. I have my vice president of operations, Evan Havers, who does a phenomenal job for us. Him and I sometimes laugh, and we look at 5, 6, 8 years ago, the changes that we've made over time, that some of the things we look at is like, geez, how do we even operate like that? And even back then we had already made a lot of good changes, but it's just gradually making the changes. And again, that reflects to your customer, because then they're going to get the service that they're supposed to have and or the finished goods that they're supposed to have. So when the customer's happy, obviously that shows off to the company. And if the employees are happy, that shows off to the customer, because the employees are going to work hard for what they're trying to do for the homeowner or whoever the end result's supposed to get.
Yeah, I think that's interesting that so many employees they'll tell you that they don't want boundaries. And yet we all want boundaries. Everybody wants boundaries so that we can know what are the I don't even know how to say it, the area that we can kind of do our thing in,
Yeah.
So
like in the military,
yeah.
It's the rule of engagement. What are your rules of engagement? If you just sent people out into the battlefield and there was no rules of engagement, well, A, bunch of people are going to get hurt, and then B, a bunch of people are going to get hurt that aren't supposed to get hurt. And then you flip that to the business side and you say, hey, just come to work whenever you want to come to work. Well, that doesn't work. I'm not saying you can't have a flex schedule with employees, but again, you have to have a clear expectation what that flex schedule is. Mm-hmm. I have families that work for me, husbands, wives, they have children, they got to get the kids on the school bus at 9:00 or 8:30. They can't get to work by 9. That's fine, as long as they know their workday starts at 9 as opposed to 7. They're still going to put their hours in, but they're going to work much harder instead of me having them, come in at 7 when they've got to drop the kids off to a babysitter for those 1.5 hours before they can go to drop the kid off at school, because there's got to be a work-life balance. And if you can show your employees that, you respect what they're trying to do at home with their family, because the bottom line is they're raising kids that eventually you want to work for your company.
Yes. Yes, and I love that word that you just used. It's respect. And so many owners don't respect their employees. They expect respect, but they don't want to give respect. And
so true.
Well, that's such a mistake, because the only way that an employee is really going to work hard for you is if they love what they do, feel like they're respected for what they're accomplishing at their given job, whatever that is, and have the ability and feel that they're respected so that they can come and have a conversation with you and tell you what they need. I mean, that's how that works.
Yeah. On the Chimney business, we have about a little over 200 employees now. And I can tell you, without these employees, I wouldn't have a business. Mm-hmm. So I respect them because they respect me. They work hard, but I'm also working hard. Yeah. My business partner and I, we get up every morning and we put a full day's work in, and we make sure whatever they need help, do they need special tools? Do they need extra things? Whatever they need to make their job better and more comfortable in the company, we'll do what we can do if we're capable of doing it.
So you in that business, you have 200 employees. When you first started it with your partner, what point did you come in? How many people were in the company at that point?
I came in, I believe, 10 years after. So we've been in business now over 20, I think almost 24, 25 years. I should know that answer, but close to that. And I think I came in around 10 or 11 years into it. And we had about 20 employees, 25 max, and 1.5 locations.
Gotcha.
And now we have 7 locations, 7 factories that all manufacture specific products, all in the U.S. Everything we make is U.S. manufacturing. And like I said, a little over 200 employees.
So give us a little bit of a roadmap, if you will, on how you grew it from when you came in with 20 employees to where you are today.
Well, geez, for me, I think my big thing was to make positive changes in the company and figure out, okay, what are the markets that we're selling in, and how can we become a leader in the industry, and what's the competition doing that either we need to do or we need to do better. And then, of course, after I did my market research and started looking at some of my competition, I realized they were missing the mark on a lot of things. And whether it was just advertising or taking care of our employees to make them want to work harder, the workday gets done at between 4:30 and 6 o'clock. However, when you're in startup mode, you have to work a lot more than that. And I always say, like, we're a small business, but we're always in startup mode. Right now, one of my factories in Indianapolis, because we have two now, one of them we were working from 6 in the morning till 1 a.m. the next day. So it's overtime for people, double shifts for people. We're running 2 shifts, but I can tell you it's just like we were, 15 years ago, when everyone knows, hey, products got to go out the door, but we need good quality control. I don't want anything rushed. We need to make sure that the end result is the quality of product that we want to say, hey, that's got my stamp on it. When it says my company name on it, that's my name on it.
Right. So what kind of, and I know because you were in a small business before with your brother and grew up with your dad's business, tell me because most of our listeners are home service business out there. Tell me how they can take your story and what you did for a manufacturer and apply that to their business.
Well, one thing is, I think you have to sit back with, a lot of these small businesses are family-owned businesses, and they have family that works for them. You have to separate, coming home and having dinner with the family as opposed to when you're on the job site. A lot of times, unfortunately, I think when you're in a small business, the owners of the business, we'll say the dad or mom that owns the business has their kids working for them. They're actually treating them differently. They're almost treating them like a disciplined kid as opposed to a disciplined employee, when they really need to think about it as an employee type work relationship. So then they can get the best work out of the son or daughter who's working for them. But it also helps that person when they go out into the workforce if they end up leaving that business. You're doing an injustice to your family members if you're allowing them to kind of just show up when they want or kind of do a, not such a good job at work. When I'd go lay brick with my dad, if it wasn't done right, he'd tear part of the wall down and fix it and show me how to do it again. And so instead of him just tearing it down and just yelling at me or telling me to, get off the scaffolding, he'd show me how to do it right. So then the next time I could do it right. Because every brick that he would lay or my family would lay, he'd always say that, we have to make sure this is like it's at our house, because we want to make sure that the homeowner knows, hey, this was done by Darin Bibeau. I want to recommend him to someone else, especially back in those days. There was no internet. Mm-hmm. Our biggest advertising was word of mouth. You worked at Mrs. Johnson's house in the neighborhood. She told everybody at book club, about how nice these guys were and how polite they were. And then next thing you know, you're doing all the jobs in the neighborhood. But, if you do one bad job, Mrs. Johnson's not happy. I can tell you, you're not getting any other job in the neighborhood.
That's true. Well, today, even with the internet, word of mouth is still the biggest, number one place that business comes from for any service business. And the internet is where that word of mouth is now taking place, right? I mean, reviews are crucial for any service business.
Yeah, for sure. Even like we go to a lot of trade shows, as you know, in the chimney business, especially as a manufacturer. It's interesting. I'll meet new people in our industry and like, geez, we've never heard about you. We just started hearing about you this year, and we've been around for years. Mm-hmm. So then we have to basically, you put your salesman hat on. You have to basically educate them on, A, why you're in business, and B, why you can do a better job than the vendor that they're currently using. And a lot of times, when people come up to me and they're like, oh, how can you do a better job than company X? Well, first I ask them what the problem with company X is. Because if you don't have a problem with company X, maybe you don't need to try my company. But if you have a problem, give us a shot, and then we'll try to fix whatever issues that you had with your previous company. Or if you don't have a problem with your current company, but you still want to give us an opportunity, that's when we have to really put our A game on and try to show you that we can service you better than the competition can.
That's crucial. Talk a little bit about the early days when you came up with this acronym HONOR for your core values, and basically got the people in your company to buy into that. What was that process like for you? Did you just come up with these and then say, here's what they are, or did you involve them in coming up? Talk a little bit about how you came up with those core values and got everybody to buy in.
Well, the best way to do it is obviously you go in with a good mindset that you kind of know what the end result you want, but then you put it on your employees. So that's one way they're going to get a buy-in, and you're not force feeding it down their throat. So I sat down with a few of my key employees and said, hey, this is what we need to do. And I asked them straight up, like, what are our core values? And, you get that deer in a headlight look, or, what are your personal core values? And then, you get some pretty creative answers. And then once you start talking to people like that, then it gets the momentum going in their brain. And then all of a sudden they start working together, and then they start coming up with these ideas. Again, I had a pretty good idea what I wanted from my military experience. And it's a little bit different when you're talking to a civilian that's never been in the military. But once they understand that, it's not all, march left, march right, there's a light at the end of the tunnel if you follow the process. I mean, there's a reason why we have the best military in the world. That's because we know what we're doing. And it's the same thing in business. I say this, and I don't say this in a cocky manner, but I feel like my competition can't compete with me because I operate at a different level than they do. And in reality, obviously, they're competing with me every day. But every single day that every one of my employees gets up, they're excited to come to work, and they want to work hard because they know every time we lose a sale to our competition, we have to gain how many more back to make that up. So the goal is never lose a sale.
Right. Well, I tell you that I think that there are a lot of things that you guys do that many companies are not doing. So your military background, it sounds like, really has impacted you greatly. And I think it's easy for me to say, if you're listening, you should take heed and maybe rewind this and listen again and figure out how you can change your culture. Because we totally agree with you. We think that is absolutely paramount in having a really strong company that competes well.
And I appreciate that. And, it's interesting when a lot of times when I talk to people, or if I do some public speaking at an event similar to Ohio, or when I spoke in North Carolina, guys or gals will come up to me and say, when should I start the culture? When should I come up with core values? When should I come up with a vision statement? It's just me and two employees. We would like to get bigger. And I always say, you have to do it from day one. If you've got two employees, sit them down. Let's do it now. Because no company started with a couple hundred employees. No one. Whether it was an idea like Ben and Jerry's in a garage with two guys making ice cream, and, or it's, a company that has 4 people working for them for the next 10 years. I had a security system company do my house in Indiana, just put the security system in. And I'm going to call him a one-man operator. He's got 2 trucks and 1 part-time guy that rides the other truck. But I can tell you this guy's service was phenomenal. So about halfway through the job, his employee came in and started working with him. And I had never met the guy. And I was like, oh, because sometimes you're always like, oh, geez, is this like a part-time guy that doesn't really care what he's doing? Is he not going to be there if there's a problem? This guy came in and worked as hard as the owner. And when the owner wasn't there, it was, yes, sir, no, sir. Is this okay? Are you sure you like this? He went through every single thing like he owned the company. And those are the employees that you want. You want the employee that comes to work every day and treats the job like it's his or her company.
Yeah. I find too many business owners that don't actually want their employee acting like they own the company. It's like, hey, you work for me. You're just a grunt. You're here to do what I say do and do it how I tell you to do it. And I think that's so counterproductive. I think when you can involve your employees in creating the culture and defining what our core values are, and that buy-in that happens, man, that's the thing that propels you to new levels of success faster than you could ever imagine. When you've got that team that's all playing off the same page and they all are eating, sleeping, and breathing the same rules of engagement, the same reasons for getting up every day and coming to work and doing what we do, and that vision for what the company is. That's so powerful. And I see too many business owners that either take their organization for granted and don't think that it needs to be defined, because it's in my head. I'm the owner. So long as I know what I'm trying to build, who cares if anybody else knows? I'll tell them what they need to do. And it's just so counterproductive.
Yeah, it's a means to an end. I mean, it's interesting. It's companies like that you'll see that whether they're at a trade show and they've been around for 20, 25 years and they're still a one-man operation, which, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that if that's the vision of your company. Mm-hmm. But if you want to grow your company and you bring on employees, hey, listen, every employee I want to bring on, I want them to be smarter than me and work harder than me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the reason I want that is because, hey, I'm going to learn something from them too. There's a reason why I love to promote what's inside my company. It's because they've earned it, they deserve it, and it's so easy to promote within your company if they're already following your core values and they know what your vision is for the company, because it's their vision and their core values too. When you bring in someone from the outside, the first thing you have to make sure is they're going to follow those core values, which, believe me, I've hired a lot of people from the outside, but the first thing you have to make sure is, because you can teach pretty much anyone to do any job if they want it and they're willing to do it. Are they capable and competent to do it? And if they are, you need to give them the tools to make sure they're successful in doing it. Don't allow them to fail. As a manager or a supervisor, if you don't help them grow into that position, you're failing them as a manager. I always say, if you have to let someone go in your company, what did you do wrong that you didn't help them with? Or is it really that they just couldn't do the job? And believe me, there's times where you've got the wrong guy in the wrong seat. He or she doesn't fit on the bus. But most of the time, it's the people that didn't train them properly, or they were afraid, hey, if I teach this person more, then they're going to take my job. Mm-hmm. Well, job security is making sure the company is successful. It's not about making sure your job is in place. It's about making sure that you continue to grow your company and service your customers.
That's it.
That's it.
Good stuff. I think that's the point. We need to leave it right there. Darin, I appreciate you being on the show and for sharing what you've shared. We always like to end our interview by asking our guest for a quote that has meant something to them in their own business journey. I'm wondering if you'd share a quote with us, that one that means something to you, and then tell us what it means to you.
Let me see. I've got a couple of them that I really like, but I think my favorite quote is, tough times never last, but tough people do. And I say that because every time you're in business, you're going to run into days, weeks, months, could be a bad season. And those are the tough times. But you know what? The people that will prevail are the people that get up and work through them every day, because you're never going to have a time that you can't get through something. It's impossible. You will get through it. You just got to put your head down and keep working hard and have your team working with you. And everyone has the buy-in. You're going to move forward and you're going to be successful.
Yeah, that's so good.
That's good.
I know people are going to want to connect with you. If anyone if would like to find out more about National Chimney and about you, where would you send them online?
You can go to nationalchimney.com, or you can email me if they have any questions. I'm always willing to help people. My email address is my first initial D, last name Bibeau, Bibeau @nationalchimney.com. You can email me any questions regardless if you're in the chimney business. I own some other small businesses. I own a couple CrossFits on the East Coast. I'm an investor in a couple restaurants on the West Coast. So if I can help anyone, get through some of these hurdles in the small business world, I'd love to help them.
I appreciate that so much, Darin. And by the way, the book you gave me when we last saw each other, Turn the Ship Around, has been a phenomenal read. And I want to just say thank you for that.
Oh, no problem. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Darin Bibeau, everyone. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Darin.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate what you're doing.